Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our podcast. Today, we have a guest all the way from Brazil, Ben-Hur. Welcome to our podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, thank you, Lee. Hey, with this epic name, I hope it will be an epic time with you.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And before we dive into today's topic, I wanted to just why don't you share a little bit about your background so our viewers and listeners can get a little bit more information about who you are, what you're doing, and from that point, I think it makes a lot more sense the topic we have today.
Okay. Hey, so I'm sporting journalist about 10 years. I started in 2010 and started right in the TV here in Brazil, TV
Oh,
Global. That's the biggest broadcast here in Brazil and in
right.
South America also. I
Yeah.
think it's the fourth media company, biggest media company in the world.
Wow.
So it's quite huge. And
For
at
sure.
the time when I just started being an international correspondent in France. So I lived in Paris, just covering the national team, the preparation of the national team for the South African Soccer World Cup
Right,
in
right, right.
2010.
Yeah, in 2010. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I was living in Paris, I covered the major events there, like Roland Garros, Wimbledon in London, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just started, just with this little pressure of being an international correspondent.
Right.
So I returned to live in Brazil in 2011,
Yeah.
and I get to the US in 2016
Right.
to be international correspondent again, but this time just covering MMA, just covering
Nice.
UFC. I've been in touch with MMA since 2011 or yeah,
Right.
2011.
Right.
I remember clearly the first fight that I covered.
Yeah.
The thing was Anderson Silva against Vitor Belfort. That's the
Oh,
major
okay.
fight. Yeah,
Right.
that's the
Right.
fight that defined the MMA.
Damn.
Yeah,
Right. So I mean, it's you've seen a lot of different things. Being international, correspondent too. You've been all over the place, and I think it makes sense for our topic is essentially stories from a sports journalist and just hearing your viewpoint and kind of how it kind of because you have a very interesting lens, because you have to pick up this information, these little things, very very fast, because as you know the sport is moving so fast. The major events, we're gonna tap into the MMA, of course, and fights where one punch can be the complete story, I guess, for one match. And if we just dive into just back to 2014, when you had the opportunity to cover the 2014 VSL Pipe Master. First of all, what is this all event about? And I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what's been your highlight and as part of that event, and what do you what was your experience of being part of it as a journalist?
yeah, it was such a special time, especially because I surf.
Yeah.
So as a surfer, I follow. I grew up seeing, about Kelly, about Mick Fanning, about Joe Parkinson. So all of
Right.
these guys, I have much respect for them. And was since 2011, 12, we saw
Right.
here in Brazil a young guy called Gabriel Medina, just
Yeah.
getting a little bit more famous, a little bit, and everybody saw him and said, "Man, this could be the champ. This could be the Brazilian first champ of
Right.
the world." So in 2014 was the whole year we covered the tour of the WSL, just following all of his steps. And by the mid of the year in July, we was quite sure that he was in the end of the year fighting for the title.
Right.
So yeah, in December we made all the planning. Just okay, let's go. Let's cover the title. Let's cover the things how it will be.
Right.
So it was my first time in Hawaii, in the North
Nice.
Shore.
Nice. That must be
Man, it's
amazing.
crazy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no. Have you been there?
Not yet. It's on my list though. It's on my list.
Man, it's a place to go. It's definitely a place to go, especially in during the Pipe Masters. The Pipe Masters
Right.
is one of the most important competitions in surf, uh,
Right.
by or maybe is the most important because
Right.
have all the tradition of the Hawaiian surf,
Yeah.
and we have the thing of the title going to happen there, and the Triple Crown also.
Right.
So
Right.
we have all the things together in one beach, in one perfect wave. So
Yeah.
it was quite interesting. And Gabriel Medina just made the whole competition quite, he was just focused at all the time. In
Right.
2014, when he was trying his first title,
Yeah. Yeah.
his coach called how the name of the coach is his dad. Oh, I forget it.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
So
I'm not into like surfing, so I'm not gonna say any names.
oh really?
Yeah.
Charles.
All right. Cool. Cool.
His dad is Charles. So they made one thing that's quite interesting. They imagined a tunnel,
Right.
just that linked Gabriel to the
Yep.
waves,
Right.
and he couldn't see nothing beyond the tunnel. So he was
No.
passing through the people like he couldn't see anyone, just in his
That's
imagination.
crazy.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about Medina though, like as like an athlete and like how you guys, because you said you were essentially following him throughout 2014, and like kind of like up to his point of like making his final stand as like a pro champion. And like what was the things that you guys saw in Medina that was like, okay, like this guy's gonna make it, like what was it about him that you guys wanted to follow him and made him interesting to follow too? Because I assume like that would be like a key part in journalism, right? It's like what makes this guy or this person unique.
Yeah, I think it's a sum of factors. For the first, he's of course a talent, a gifted guy.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, he has a thing for sports, for
Yes.
any sports, but he has a good training. He has an excellent training. His dad, Charles, since he was 11, was training his body just to
Wow.
move like other persons.
Right.
Just to move like other surfers. So he trained too much in boards without the water, and he
Right.
trained with bands and many things like that.
Yeah.
So he made a training that other surfers here in Brazil and beyond that, other surfers all around the world didn't have this kind of experience.
Right.
All the things made his surf quite interesting,
Yeah.
especially by the airs. He's good at the airs. So
Right. Right.
this is one thing. But when Ripco just saw this guy here
Right.
in Brazil, that could be a potential guy, Ripco saw in him the opportunity to catch another market. So
Right.
Ripco,
Sponsor.
invested a lot in him.
That
Invested
makes
quite a
sense
lot.
though, right? Like if it's gonna be
Makes
the
sense.
next icon of the industry, like it's gonna earn, like it's gonna bring them a lot of money. If he uses like their brand, their products, it's gonna that's how it works, branding.
Of course. So quite young, he started to travel to many waves different all around the world,
Right.
just training hard,
Yeah.
and all these supports of the brands behind him
Yeah.
just gave him to catch many places, It was
Right.
good.
That's essentially the foundation, right? But I think it's
Yeah.
very interesting what you talk about is his way of like training, right? And like how unique it was for the surf industry, and that's quite fascinating. How like especially being like this young person, right, and coming in and kind of like changing how the industry trains. And you usually need like these disruptors in sports in order to take the next leap. And at some point, like I don't know, like I said, I don't know the industry that well yet. So I don't know who's like the leaders now, but I assume like at some point there will come another person that will like reinvent again the training wheel and how you perform. So like it's just how the sports evolve.
I think in each sport we have this kind of guy that changes a little bit
Right.
of the way they practice.
100%.
If we think about the F1, when Ayrton Senna started just
Right.
to practice outside of the car, I don't know if you know the story of Senna quite well.
You just told me a little bit, but please
Yeah.
tell our viewers.
The main point of Ayrton Senna was the training that he was doing outside the car.
Right.
He started to run about 21 kilometers, 15 kilometers, and he was doing the cardio and everything like that. And all this training just helped him to hold the car, to hold the
Right.
pressure of the car.
Right.
Because in the start of the 90s, we have a totally quite different car than we have of nowadays
Yeah.
in the F1.
No, for sure.
So his training made him the best pilot of that time. You know,
Right.
it's quite different than we have nowadays of Lewis Hamilton. Lewis
Yeah,
Hamilton
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
another thing. Yeah, it's another change. You know, and of course, I think he will be the best of all time for a long. You know,
Right, right,
uh,
right. No, for sure.
and if you think about the MMA, we have Anderson Silva doing one things, and on the opposite side, we have maybe Conor McGregor
Right.
doing other stuff. You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so I think in other sports we have this kind of persons that
I mean,
change.
like there will always be people that reinvent, the industry, and like just going back a little bit to Norway though, with like their ski sports, right? Like you have sprinters, right? Ski sprinters, and sprinting wasn't even like a distance like back in the days, and like suddenly like someone just like we're so tactical and just like waited with the staff, and then they just like went down at the final stretch as a sprinting, and it was like who sprints in ski, and suddenly it was there, right? And you have like two now Norwegians. One of them is quite famous, like Petter Northug has been like winning everything essentially in ski and cross country skiing and everything. And he was essentially like the one that implemented strategy in ski races, like in cross country skiing. And like nobody did that. Everybody's just everybody's just going from like A to finish, right? From start to finish in like one their pace and just try to get tired. And suddenly he just like messes up everything with his strategy and nobody gets anything. And he was so fast, he just outcompeted everyone. And now like there's another Norwegian like started a couple of years ago where suddenly his way of sprinting was so unique. No one has ever seen. It was almost like he was running up the hill with skis, running. Like it looks like he's running. It's crazy. And that's reinventing skiing. So
Yeah.
like you said, there will always be like these people that come up with like these new and innovative ideas and ways of training that makes natural, like perfect sense for them. And then suddenly they change the entire game, the entire industry. And that is for sure fascinating, to explore.
Yeah, I think they see in the game points that the other doesn't see.
Right. No, I think you're very right. And this is also key for you guys though to pick up as sports journalists, and like what makes these people unique. Not necessarily just like the training foundation or like their body or like a talent for sports, because a lot of people has talent for sports, but what makes the character unique. And like I mean, like if we're talking about unique characters, we kind of like have to dive into like MMA and Conor McGregor. Like that's probably a very unique character in general. And like you had the opportunity to be involved in a lot of like UFC events in like 2016 and 2017. Seeing major moments. So among others, like watching Conor McGregor and kind of like his journey, like what do you take from there, and like what has been some of your I don't know, like some of your cool stories that you can bring up from like the UFC and MMA world?
Yeah, I think Conor definitely is not a good person to observe in the sports. I really think he's a bad example of an athlete, behavior.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
He's such a great fighter, and it's interesting to see him fighting. But
Right.
even on his best moments, he could ruin everything just going beyond the limits,
Right. Right.
outside the cage.
For sure.
So
For sure.
yeah, so and I don't know how's him in Ireland right now. I really hope the person just started to catch him as he really is.
Right.
He's a he's a young guy who
Yeah.
didn't grow up. I don't know when he catch the money and the famous and everything like that. His
Right.
mind just poof,
Right.
Right. Yeah, he just blows everything. So I remember two moments, of Conor McGregor. One, when he won Jose Aldo for the first time in Las Vegas. I was there covering, and everybody, I thought Aldo, we would won that fight. He could have won easily, but it was the first thing, the first punch on the 3 seconds of fight. Oh, man, and everything ruined. So when I catch McGregor getting this opportunity of out, I said, okay, we have to respect this guy.
Right.
And man, this was the worst night for the Brazilians in Vegas, because
I
all the
can
Irish
imagine.
people,
I can imagine.
yeah, all the Irish people, just screaming everywhere. The Irish are totally crazy, but
Right.
so
But Aldo was
it
like
was,
a big player, right? In UFC at that point,
yeah,
like one of the best.
yeah, one of the most, he was the champion for about 4 years, I guess.
Wow,
So yeah,
that's
it
pretty
was,
impressive in that game too, to
yeah,
keep it
course.
that long.
Keeping the belt, yeah, keeping the
Yeah.
belt for a long time. And the other moment that I really remember, and it just captured my attention for Conor, was an UFC in New York when he
Yeah.
was fighting. Who? No. When he lost for Nate Diaz, when he lost for
Right.
Nate Diaz in Las Vegas too, and because Nate just got this fight about 5 days or 6 days, before the fight, because
Yeah.
Rafael dos Anjos just got injured, and then
Ah,
Nate
okay.
was replacing him. Yeah, so everybody didn't what to expect. We didn't know what to expect from Nate Diaz and this fight against Conor.
Right.
So when we saw Nate just winning the fight a little bit, just getting Conor in the position, just submitting him,
Yeah.
man, it was so surprising. And I
Underdogs,
really,
Underdogs.
yeah, I really felt a little revenge, just like, oh, just.
That's good. But where is sorry for like my lack of knowledge here, but Nate Diaz, like where is he from? The
Nate Diaz.
Yeah.
Nate's from California, I
All right,
guess.
right,
Do you
right.
know him? Yeah. He
Okay.
has this Spanish name, but he's from California.
Yeah, no, I was like, okay, maybe it's like some South American or like Mexican or
No.
right. Okay, but that's pretty interesting though, because I mean, like, you will always have like this, and you talked about, of course, like we can talk a lot about like what's kind of like the right, how to behave, right? I mean, like in general, like MMA and like UFC has always been a very like tough sport in general, with a lot of, I would say, like maybe banter in a sense, like hammering each other, before
Mhm.
games, and like it's kind of like part of
Yeah,
it. But I think like Conor McGregor kind of like just took it to like a different level, of like what
yeah.
people expect. I mean, like I'm not saying it's good or bad, but it's just
No,
like he brought a lot of attention, to him, which was probably what he wanted.
yeah, I think it's not necessary. The things that he does with the trash talking it's really not
Yeah.
necessary. We had things growing up in box just a long time ago. When we
Right.
saw Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali made it such a good trash talking. He just is
Yeah.
trying to destabilize the enemy, the opposite.
Right.
So Conor made it a little dirty.
Right.
I really think this is not necessary for the sport and for the
Yeah.
values that we want to bring to everybody.
I think
But
it's
MMA is such a unique thing in
yeah.
in the sport. Uh, uh, we can see by the sign. Dana White, the
Right.
UFC head,
Yeah.
just want to do an event, even in the middle of the pandemic thing in the US. He wants to
Yeah.
do an event in
Yeah.
Florida.
Yeah.
Man, I think that guy is totally crazy. By
Yeah.
his mind, we can see everything that's happening in MMA things.
Yeah.
MMA is a universe totally different than the other sports that we know, or maybe the Olympic sports that we know.
Right, right. No, for sure. I agree 100%. And I think it's very interesting there to talk to. It's like, like the friendly banter and like the trash talking will always be there, but like how do you do it, and like how do you respect, the rules and I would say like the guidelines of the MMA and like what they stand for too, because I mean, like, of course it's nice to have like this, crazy people, but how far should you stretch it, and like
Uh,
what is really, we can probably do like another podcast just on that, but
yeah,
but
what's the limit? What's the limit on that? Yeah,
right, there's
that's a
also
good
a
question.
limit. And but let's dive like continue a little bit with like MMA and like Amanda Nunes. So you talk about like she's one of like probably the best female MMA fighter of all times. And what was it like, you like, I sure like you saw some of her fights, and like what makes her unique and essentially the best female fighter out there. Like what was it
Yeah,
about her, you know?
I could say that Amanda is one thing, confidence.
Yeah.
He has such a power of confidence in herself and in her team.
Right.
Of course, there's hard work. Of course, there's many things, but uh, she knows that technically,
Yeah.
maybe Chris Cyborg just getting another level than she,
Right.
but she also knows that she has a confidence to look at her eyes and
Yeah.
many things that I think this is the point of Amanda.
Yeah.
The first time that I saw Amanda winning a title was the I don't know what's the category. I think it's the featherweight,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
she was just trying to prove to everybody that she could get in a belt. So
Right.
when she
Right.
get it, man, she just started to cry in about 10 minutes. Just I couldn't. I was there outside the cage,
Yeah.
behind the cage, waiting for she comes to interview her. She
Right.
just and she just couldn't stop crying. It was
Wow.
crazy for me. Yeah,
Wow.
because she was so emotional, so she couldn't believe. I think it was something like that. And the main thing interesting about Amanda is that she grew up in a quite small city here in Brazil.
Yeah.
Man, too small city in Brazil, and she couldn't see another opportunity to grow up in life. For
Right.
her, was fight or fight. She couldn't see a second way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so she put all of these coins,
Right.
all of her coins, all of her confidence in fighting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think for her, man, it was a way to bring to her family everything that she wanted.
Right. Right.
We have this in Brazilian fighters many times, to help
Yeah.
everybody here,
I mean,
things like
like
that.
I think you're onto really something though. Like I mean, like of course, like we can to talk about like general like athletes, right? Like how are you, like why are you becoming the best of the best, right? And in many cases, it's just like this is your way, like this is the only way you've been seeing like since day one, and this is gonna be, you put all your efforts in here, and we talk a lot about like being in a comfortable position here in Norway and like a lot of the Nordic countries of like like if this doesn't work, we have something else, like to fall, like whole have like all this stuff to fall back on. And in a lot of other countries, you don't necessarily have that baseline. So you just have to sacrifice everything, and hence also when you first like achieve it, like as you said, like she was crying like nonstop and like for good reason
Yeah,
too, just all the time she's been working up towards this moment, and now she's finally there. So I can imagine like in being there for you and like just witnessing that tremendous story, from like the beginning to like reaching that goal.
yeah, yeah. It's crazy to see how the person turns, how the person transform herself with the
Right.
achievements,
Yeah.
and this was the first time when she won the belt. So when she won Cry Cyborg, I wasn't there, and I met her about 2 days later.
Right.
When she met me, she said, I told you I was doing that. And I had to,
That's
okay, I
amazing.
heard.
You were like, woo, finally.
Yeah, okay, man. I
That's,
saw the fight, man. I saw you.
yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. I mean, like, just can imagine how that feels. But I mean, like, we're already starting to like reaching like the 30-minute mark, and like it's been like a really interesting talk, but just starting to like to wrap it up. So I mean, like we have a lot of young people listening to like these kind of blog interviews, and we focus a lot on helping students, young professionals trying to find their path. And if like what tips do you have for those students or professionals that are trying to start their path in sports journalism? What is it things they need to think about, and how do you start that journey?
I think the main thing, if you want to follow sport journalism, is the thing that you are a journalist. You are
Right.
telling stories. You
Right.
are so you have to keep your mind open to everything that's beyond sport.
Right.
please, yeah, if you are following the NFL, man, you have to know how about the economic things about the NFL. Have to know about the healthy of the players that do the NFL thing,
Right.
because if you keep your mind open to all these points, you are able to get the stories, the best stories
Right.
to do your product.
So essentially
Uh,
understanding the industry and your
yeah,
market.
yeah. That's the point. That's the point.
Right.
So keeping in mind that you are part of a big engrenage, a big thing that moves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course nowadays is the tip that I give to everybody that wants to follow journalism. You have to know a little bit about database. You have to know a little bit about language programming and everything like
Right.
that. Make Python. Just to, especially in big leagues like NBA, NFL,
Right.
maybe the NHL. You have to know about the numbers. The numbers
Yeah.
says many
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
about leagues. So
The
if
Americans
you are
love the
able,
data. It's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
all
So
data
if
driven.
you are familiar to data, you you can get another things.
I mean, like, might be interesting though. Like, I mean, like, this just pops in my head, but like, if you're wanting to do like journalism in sports, as you talk, like, obviously now you're talking about like, okay, understanding your industry, right? Which is obviously it's key. Whatever you want to do, you need to understand,
Yeah,
what the industry you're in and how it works. In order, as you said, creating the best stories. And then you brought up like, data, which I think like most people don't necessarily like think about. And here I think it would be interesting, like, if you're able to do like some sports analytics courses or like some analytics courses, right, to understand the data and how they use it. Hence I think like the stories that you can tell, as you mentioned, like it's all about storytelling. How can you tell the best stories and to have that foundation to tell that? And I think that's a great advice for sure.
yeah. I think that's the main point for the journalists nowadays. If
Yeah.
you can read a good database, you are another journalist. You are quite ahead in front of the
Right.
other people.
Well, I think with that, Ben-Hur, I would like to thank you for the time. I mean, like, we could probably talk. I know we have like a lot of stories, and then we'll probably touch back at some point with some more stories. But for now, I would like to thank you for the time. It's been a pleasure having you here, and I'm sure everyone like that's passionate about like sports journalism and want to hear a little bit about like the MMA and like UFC and like even the world surfing. Like there's a lot of good stories here. That also like I think it's nice that you bring up like those, I would say, like non-typical like famous sports. I mean, like they are big, of course, in their each, but it's not like football, baseball, like it's not the
Yeah,
typical ones, right? And I think it's nice to bring something different, something unique, and again showcasing that there's so much more than just football, like pro football or soccer or something. So I think it's like showcasing that there's so much, you have talents everywhere, and the stories are quite kind of similar too. Like it's all about following an athlete or a team or whatever it is and their path towards success. And like I said, thank you once again for the time, Ben-Hur, and it's been a pleasure having you part of the podcast.
oh, thank you so much, Ole. It was my pleasure, to talk to you guys. And thank you everybody who's listening to us. Just follow me on social media, Ben-Hur Correia, Correia. And
Awesome.
it will be a pleasure to answer everybody and to keep in touch.
Awesome. We'll tag you in like all the stuff when we're sharing it, and then with that, I will always finish with "Vi snackes," which means I see you later in Norwegian. So now you know that. All right. Thank you, Ben-Hur.
Okay. Thank you, man.